What if true strength had nothing to do with muscles or loud words, but everything to do with the mind no one can shake? What if silence could speak louder than noise, and presence alone could make others pause, even without you saying a word? And what if the path to that kind of unshakable strength had already been carved 2,000 years ago, by those who faced chaos and won? You don't have to fake it anymore. You don't need to put on a mask of toughness, or pretend you're okay when you're not. What you need is a mind so steady, so anchored, that nothing and no one can push you off balance. Not criticism, not failure, not even temptation. A mind like that speaks for itself. When you walk into a room, people feel it. They sense something different. You don't need to explain it. It's in how you carry yourself. This kind of inner strength isn't new. It's not a TikTok trend or some feel-good hack. It was built centuries ago on battlefields, in royal courts, in prison cells, and through the trials of everyday survival. It was practiced by warriors, by emperors, and by everyday people who refused to be broken by life. And they all had one thing in common: Stoicism. Stoicism isn't just a philosophy you read in a book and forget. It's a time-tested toolkit for anyone ready to take back control. It helps you manage emotions, see clearly, stay grounded, build discipline, and protect yourself from the chaos around you. If you're tired of reacting to every storm, if you're ready to become unshakable, then keep watching, because Stoicism might just be the clarity you've been looking for. Number 1. Growth comes with loneliness. If you want a mind so powerful it unsettles others, prepare for this. The first thing you'll feel is loneliness, not because you're broken, but because you're finally choosing yourself. You stop playing along. You stop nodding at things that make no sense to you. You stop faking excitement at hollow parties. And for the first time you begin questioning the rules you've followed without ever thinking. And suddenly, you're not normal anymore. The world notices. The more focused your vision becomes, the more uncomfortable others feel. When you quit smoking, it makes others nervous. When you don't laugh at cruel jokes, or don't join in gossip, they call you distant. But here's the truth: you're not attacking them. You've simply stopped wanting to be like them. Let's be honest. Aren't you tired of performing? Of pretending to care about things that drain your soul? Of smiling through conversations that feel empty? You're not cold. You're just done being a supporting character in someone else's emotional mess. Marcus Aurelius said it best: to live a good life, we have the potential for it if we can learn to be indifferent to what makes no difference. A meaningful life isn't about how many people you impress. It's about how free you are from things that don't matter. And here's what truly shakes people: when you stop chasing empty distractions, you hold up a mirror. You show them how much noise they've built their lives around. From this moment on, you'll need to master a rare and underrated skill: walking alone without losing your way. No one teaches this. There's no class for staying awake in a world that's asleep. But it's here, in the quiet and the confusion, the silence, the solitude, that a powerful mind is born. Imagine this: you're standing in a dimly lit room. No phone, no one talking, no distractions. Just you and your rawest thoughts. Most people run from this moment. But this is where it starts. And from here, we move to something just as vital: how setting your intention each morning can shape the entire course of your day. Let's keep going. In the last part, we stood in the quiet, just you and your thoughts. And the question was simple but brutal: can you sit in that silence without breaking? Can you really handle the silence? Or does it make your skin crawl? Do you reach for your phone, turn on music, text someone, anything to avoid the stillness? Because here's a hard truth: if you can't sit alone with yourself, you'll always belong to the crowd. And if you always need the crowd to feel whole, you'll never be strong enough to become who you really are. True strength is born in solitude. Look at Emily Dickinson. She barely left her room, yet her words have echoed through generations. Think of Nikola Tesla. Most of his life was spent in silence, shunned and misunderstood. But his solitude was fertile ground. His clarity reshaped the modern world. These minds didn't seek comfort. They stepped away from the noise, and in doing so, they found razor-sharp clarity. That clarity didn't come from applause. It came from the courage to sit with their deepest questions. Are you willing to pay that price? Try this just once. Turn everything off. Lock the door. No music. No screen. Just you and a notebook. Now ask yourself, what am I avoiding? What questions scare me the most? Why do I need so much attention to feel like I matter? The answers won't arrive neatly packaged. Not at first, but something will start to shift. In that silence, something stronger will begin to rise inside you. Because here's what most people get. Wrong loneliness isn't punishment. It's preparation. It's the place where reconstruction begins. It's the battlefield where your mind either cracks or becomes indestructible. Once you can stand in silence without shrinking. Once you can be alone without reaching for validation, everything else becomes background noise. Criticism, rejection, failure, they lose their grip on you. And when you return from that silence, steady and unshaken, people will notice. Not with admiration but with caution, because they'll feel it. You've changed. You're no longer easy to control. You're no longer craving their approval. And that makes people uncomfortable. But are you ready for what comes next? Because the hardest part isn't finding clarity in silence, it's holding onto it when you return to the world. When you change, even quietly, it can threaten people. Not because you've harmed them, but because your growth reflects their own stagnation. Number 2, your change will threaten others. It doesn't take much. Maybe you start thinking differently, speaking with more intention, skipping empty social events, saying no to gossip, sharing ideas that go deeper than surface-level chatter. Suddenly, the air shifts. People look at you sideways. You haven't done anything wrong. But your shift, even if it's subtle, acts like a mirror. And not everyone is ready to look into it. You've likely felt this before. You start reading more. Maybe you simplify your life. You stop blaming others and start taking ownership. You expect support or at least curiosity. But what you get is discomfort. Sarcasm, dismissive jokes like, "Since when did you become a philosopher?" or "All right, Mr. Deep Thoughts." And worst of all, silence. That quiet disinterest when you try to share something meaningful. Why? Because real growth disrupts comfort. Especially the kind of comfort built on distraction, complaint, and denial. Mental growth is often quiet, but it radiates, like turning on a light in a dark room. You don't have to say a word, people feel the difference. And if someone has been sitting in that darkness too long, your light won't feel warm, it'll feel harsh. There's a name for this groupthink. It's the social instinct to keep everyone aligned, keep the surface calm. So when you stop complaining and start changing, you become the odd one out, the unpredictable one. And in group psychology, that makes you a threat. Not because you're wrong, but because your evolution threatens everything that no longer serves the group. And that's where we'll go next, how to keep growing even when the people around you want you to stop. In the last part, we uncovered a hard truth. Your growth will make some people uncomfortable. And now, we're going to look at why at a deeper level your evolution can feel like a threat. Have you ever wondered why Socrates, one of the greatest thinkers in history, was sentenced to death? It wasn't because he broke any laws in the traditional sense. He didn't steal, didn't incite violence. The official charge was corrupting the youth of Athens. But that wasn't the real reason, the truth. He made people think. He shattered illusions. He asked questions no one else dared to ask and forced society to confront its own contradictions and blind spots. And that scared the powerful. Socrates didn't raise a sword, he raised awareness. And that, more than anything, was dangerous. Fast forward centuries, and we see the same story repeat. Take Malcolm X. When he evolved, when he expanded his message from black nationalism to a broader vision of unity and humanity, he didn't just lose favor with the system. He was seen as a threat by his own former allies. Growth made him a traitor in the eyes of those who once stood with him. Because sometimes, growth doesn't just distance you from enemies, it alienates you from your own tribe. So now here's the real question. Have you ever held yourself back just to keep others comfortable? How many times have you dimmed your light just to stay in someone else's shadow? Shrunk yourself so you wouldn't be too much? Chased approval from people who would disappear the moment you stopped entertaining their expectations? Here's something most people won't tell you. The ones you're working so hard to please now might be the first to vanish when things get hard. That's why the only approval that truly matters is your own. Because when everything else falls away, it's your inner strength that will carry you. Don't abandon your growth just because it makes others uneasy. You can't step into your future while clinging to the comfort of your past. Growth requires leaving something behind. It always does. And yes, it can feel lonely. But remember what Marcus Aurelius wrote. The object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane. So what do you do when your transformation makes others uncomfortable? You don't explain. You don't justify. You don't beg for understanding. You stay silent and you keep moving forward. Real change speaks for itself. Not in arguments, not in debates, but in how you live, in your peace, your consistency, your resilience. Here's a practical exercise. Grab a notebook and write down 3 changes you're making in your life. Then list 3 negative reactions you've received from others. Now ask yourself, if I went back to who I used to be, would I respect myself more? Usually, the answer is painfully clear. A strong mind doesn't run from resistance, it walks through it. It knows not everyone will understand, and it stops waiting for permission. Not everyone is ready for the new. But if you are, stop hesitating. Stop asking. Just go. If this message hit home for you, share one change you're making in the comments below. Because sometimes, one honest voice gives others the courage to speak up to. And if you're serious about building an unshakable mind, stick with us. We're just getting started. Next up, let's talk about one of the most liberating shifts of all. Learning to let go of the need for approval. In the last section, we talked about what happens when you stop chasing approval and how that one shift alone can transform your presence. Now, let's go even deeper. What happens when you let go of acceptable and step fully into authentic? They've crossed the line from what's socially approved to what's personally true. And here's a question that cuts deeper than we'd like to admit. Have you ever stopped doing something you believed in simply because someone disapproved? Maybe you deleted a post you cared about. Maybe you hesitated to speak up, afraid no one would care or that someone would roll their eyes. But the real question isn't how often you censor yourself, it's whose life are you living. When the need for recognition drives your choices, you're no longer in control. You may look free, you may sound confident, but inside, you've handed over the wheel. You're a puppet, dressed in the costume of an independent mind. Stoic philosophy doesn't sugarcoat it. If you want to grow, truly grow, you must be content with being misunderstood. You must accept the possibility of looking foolish, as Epictetus taught. If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Why? Because growth doesn't come wrapped in praise. It demands the courage to look wrong before you're proven right. That's the price of authenticity. The less you rely on external approval, the more you can choose what's right even when it's unpopular. But society doesn't reward this. It resists it. Because if you stand alone, confidently, you reveal something uncomfortable they could have, too, but didn't. Mediocrity doesn't need violence to keep order. It needs agreement. It thrives on sideways glances, sarcastic comments, and friendly advice meant to steer you back to safety. Not because people hate you, but because your quiet courage unsettles them. Your confidence shines a light on their doubt. Nietzsche called this slave morality, a mindset where weakness is rebranded as virtue. When you're strong, they say you're cold. When you're self-sufficient, they call you selfish. But you weren't born to keep everyone happy. Remember Galileo? He was condemned for stating a simple truth, that the earth revolves around the sun. Not because he was wrong, but because his truth lacked popular approval. Rosa Parks didn't shout. She just refused to move, and her quiet act forced a nation to look itself in the mirror. Real power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's a calm refusal to flinch when the world tries to shake you. Here's a small, yet powerful challenge. Go eat alone at your regular spot. No phone, no book, no headphones, just you and the table. Feel that discomfort rising, that itch to appear busy. That's not loneliness. That's fear, the fear of being seen as lonely. But if you stay with it, something shifts. You'll realize that freedom begins when you stop performing for other people's eyes. Ask yourself this: if I posted nothing, told no one, would my work still feel meaningful? If the answer is no, maybe you're performing life instead of truly living it. Like a farmer who plants crops not for food, but for likes. You've been off track longer than you think. The Bible offers a bold reminder: do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. You don't have to fight the world. You just need the courage to live differently. And it all starts here, by letting go of the crowd's applause. If you want a mind that quietly commands respect, that unsettles without effort, then start by defining your values. Don't inherit morals. Don't wait for permission. Let every action answer this question: does this bring me closer to who I want to become? When you can stand in your truth, without leaning on praise, you're no longer just respected, you're unstoppable. Next up, let's talk about what happens when you take that mindset and aim it inward. When you stop blaming and start owning every part of your life. In the last part, we challenged the idea of living for approval and called on you to define your own values. Now, we go even deeper into what it truly means to take full ownership of your life. In Stoic philosophy, there's a recurring and powerful idea called logos, the rational structure, the underlying logic that governs the universe. Everything, every event, every twist of fate unfolds according to this order. Whether you agree with it or not, whether you like it or not, logos is always at work. But here's the key: logos isn't fate. It's not your destiny. It's not some unchangeable script. It's the setting, the playing field. How you choose to act within that setting, that's all on you. You may lose your job. Someone might betray you. You could be misunderstood or unfairly criticized. That's life doing what life does. That's its part. But your part, that's your reaction, and how you respond calmly, wisely, with dignity or without it. That's your signature. That's your personal declaration of strength. Too often, we confuse faith with surrender. We assume that if we live right, life will treat us gently in return. But maturity begins the moment you let go of that idea. The moment you stop expecting fairness and start preparing for responsibility. It begins when you look in the mirror and ask yourself, if no one helps me, how far can I carry myself? That's not bitterness, it's ownership. It's where real strength begins, inside, not outside. When Nietzsche declared, God is dead, he wasn't celebrating. He wasn't championing atheism. He was warning. What he meant was this: the old foundation is gone. There's no divine rule book, no fate, no automatic morality. No one's coming to tell you what's right or wrong. No savior is coming to hand you your mission. From now on, you are the author. You're steering the ship. And if it crashes into the rocks, you can't blame the sea. It's a lonely truth, but also a liberating one, because with that burden comes pure power. Jean-Paul Sartre pushed this even further. He said, man is condemned to be free. It sounds harsh, like a contradiction, but think about it. Freedom sounds beautiful, until you realize it also means there's no one left to blame, no blueprint, no fallback. Every decision is yours, and so is every consequence. You can't keep blaming your parents, or your past, or society, or how people don't get you. Freedom gives you the right to rewrite your story, but it also removes your right to complain when the ending doesn't feel fair. And if that truth feels heavy, good, it's meant to be, because real freedom has weight, and only those strong enough to carry it will ever taste its full power. The world doesn't know what to do with someone like that. You can't be bribed. You can't be manipulated. You don't break easily. And that unnerves people. So, where do you begin? You begin by dropping every excuse that says, I'm this way because, no, you're this way because you've chosen to be. And that means you can choose differently, but only if you're brave enough to stop hiding behind the list. Here's a practice that almost no one does, but everyone should. Before you sleep tonight, don't ask, who stressed me out today? Instead ask, what responsibility did I avoid today? Write it down. Not to shame yourself, not to spiral, but so that tomorrow you can take one small step forward, one honest move, one deliberate choice. Because a strong mind isn't the one that has all the answers. It's the one willing to own the unknown. So before we go any further, pause. Just stop right now. Breathe. Look around. Let this moment land. Because in the next section, we'll build on this by exploring how to strengthen your focus and direct your energy with absolute clarity. In the last moment, you paused, took a breath, and owned your part. That alone proved something powerful. You can choose. You can interrupt autopilot. Even while a video plays, you made a decision. That's strength, real strength. And if you've made it this far, take a second to hit like. Not for us, for you. Let it be a silent pledge, a personal commitment that you're done living like a victim. Done with excuses. Done with surrendering your power. Because everything you've heard so far, every piece of this journey, is building toward one outcome: a mind so solid, so steady, the world can't ignore it. Number 5, strength is facing pain. So, how do you build a mind like that? The kind of mind that walks into a room and makes people pause. The kind that doesn't flinch when life hits hard. Here's a truth you won't hear on most self-help podcasts. Strength isn't built on comfort, and it certainly doesn't come from fluffy mantras like just love yourself or everything happens for a reason. No, real strength comes from doing the one thing most people avoid, facing pain head-on. Sometimes the very cracks in your soul, the ones you try to hide, are where the light enters, where the growth starts, where the unshakable version of you begins to take form. But let's be honest, how many times have you chosen to run instead of endure? How many times have you distracted yourself, numbed the ache, or told yourself, it's fine, I'll deal with it later? And where did that avoidance really get you? Because here's the thing. A mind of steel isn't forged in safe places. It's shaped in the middle of chaos. It's born in confusion, in heartbreak, in the nights where sleep doesn't come. That's the forge. That's the real gym. We tend to think inner turmoil means something's broken. But what if it's the opposite? What if pain is raw material clay, waiting to be molded into strength? Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, once said, "People can endure almost anyhow, as long as they have a why. Meaning makes pain bearable. It transforms suffering into something you can stand on." So ask yourself, have I ever searched for meaning in my suffering? Or have I only tried to escape it? Let me share a story with you, a real one. Because it proves something harsh, but honest. Pain doesn't destroy you. Avoiding pain does. There was a man named James, successful engineer, devoted father, loving husband. Then, tragedy struck. His 6-year-old son died in a sudden accident. James fell apart. He shut down, buried every feeling under spreadsheets and long work hours. He wore numbness like armor, trying to outrun the grief. But one day, he saw a pair of his son's old shoes under the table and collapsed. For the first time, he cried. Not a polite tear, a full, soul-shattering breakdown. But that was the moment. Everything started to change. James began writing letters to his son, one every day. In them, he poured out the pain, the guilt, the memories that would never happen. And those letters, they became a book, one that helped thousands of parents navigate loss. Maybe your pain isn't the same, but everyone's carrying something. Everyone has their own version of those shoes under the table. So here's the practice. Each morning, ask yourself, what pain am I trying to ignore? Write it down, not to complain but to understand. Then ask, what can this pain teach me? When you face pain, it loses its grip. It becomes fuel. Just like coal under pressure becomes diamond, your mind under pressure sharpens. It hardens. It transforms. Seneca said it best, a gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. And now that we've seen how pain can be our teacher, let's take that insight and channel it into something even more powerful. The ability to focus your attention like a laser and direct your energy where it truly matters. Previously, we explored how turning pain into purpose builds a mind no hardship can shatter. Now, it's time to dig even deeper into the fears that quietly hold you back. Without hardship, there's no strength. So here's the uncomfortable but necessary question. Do you want comfort in illusion or growth through truth? Take a breath, pause for a second. Ask yourself honestly, how many times have I backed down not because I couldn't, but because I didn't want to feel pain? How many life-changing opportunities did you let slip by, just to avoid being vulnerable, afraid, exposed? Here's something practical. Choose one painful memory, something that still stings. Now rewrite it. But don't write it like you're still stuck inside the storm. Write it like someone who made it through, like someone who's already overcome. Tell it like a survivor, not a victim. Because when your story changes, your mind changes too. A strong mind isn't something you're born with, it's something you build. And guess what the building blocks are? Pain, loss, rejection, failure. All the things you've been told to avoid are the very materials of resilience. While others flinch, you keep walking. While they complain, you listen and learn. While they crumble, you evolve. And that's when people start to feel something around you. Not fear of who you are, but fear of what you've become. Not because you don't feel pain, but because you don't break under it. That's real power. Quiet, grounded, unshakable. And once you learn how to turn pain into fuel, you're ready for the next step, something most people never train for. prepare for the worst, but not in a pessimistic, anxious way. No, this is a mental discipline. This is how you become the kind of person nothing can catch off guard. One of the most quietly dangerous habits of mentally strong people is this. They always expect the worst, not because they enjoy it, not because they want bad things to happen, but because they refuse to be blindsided. They don't live in denial. They don't count on smooth sailing. They want clarity even when the truth is hard. That's what makes them so steady in a storm. You can't break someone who has already made peace with the possibility of failure. You've seen it before, the calm one in chaos, while everyone else is panicking. They're sitting still, their face unmoved, their presence almost eerie. They don't panic because they plan for this. And when others call them cold, it's not coldness. It's stoicism at the highest level. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The wise man sees in the misfortunes of others what he should avoid." The Stoics don't wait for life to slap them awake. They observe, they reflect, and they ask the tough questions most people bury. What if I lose someone I love tomorrow? What if my job is gone next week? What if someone betrays me again? They don't ask to torture themselves. They ask to prepare, to bulletproof their mindset. Howard Marks, one of Wall Street's most respected investors, put it like this: risk is what's left when you think you've thought of everything. He never enters a deal without planning out the worst case scenario, not because he lacks confidence, but because he knows it's not failure that destroys you. It's surprise. So here's your turn. When was the last time you imagined the worst case scenario in your own life? And when was the last time you broke down because you never saw it coming? Here's a tool to change that. It's called the collapse model. Once a week, pick one area of your life, your job, your relationship, your health, your finances. Write out the worst thing that could realistically happen, in detail, no filters. Then map out your response. What would you do? Who could you turn to? What would recovery look like? Then, put your phone down. Close your eyes. Feel your heartbeat. Because if you can prepare your mind for what most fear, you'll move through life with a quiet, unshakable confidence most will never understand. And in the next part, we'll explore how mastering your energy, not just your thoughts, is the key to lasting resilience and focused power. In the last section, we talked about preparing for the worst, not out of fear, but to build resilience so powerful nothing can catch you off guard. And when you train your mind to expect difficulty, something incredible happens. You stop flinching. If you're still breathing calmly, if your heart is steady, if you haven't flinched while thinking about loss or failure, congratulations. You're stepping into rare territory. You're getting closer to becoming unshakable. People don't fear you because you're wealthy or brilliant. They fear you because you stay calm in the storm. They fear the way you don't collapse under pressure, the way you prepare for things they're too scared to even name. Your calm doesn't just protect you, it reveals their fragility. Think about it. Have you ever seen Mike Tyson walk into a boxing ring? No shouting, no trash talk, no forced grin, just a stone-cold face, calculated, almost unreadable. Because in his mind, the fight had already happened. 100 times, every hit, every counter, every possibility, he had already been there. Tyson didn't just defeat people with power. He crushed them with psychological precision, born not from comfort, but from a life of pain, poverty, abandonment. That's where his stillness came from. Being prepared for pain doesn't make you cold. It makes you clear. It makes you immune to panic. Most people run from pain. They don't want to think about it. But you invite it in. You let it sit across the table, and you ask it calmly, "Well, what are you here to teach me?" Here's a final question for this section one that separates the strong from the fragile. If you lost everything today, your money, your reputation, Your friends what would still be intact inside you, because a strong mind doesn't need to roar like a lion. It doesn't need to perform. It just needs to remain still, unmoved, while the world around it trembles, and sometimes that stillness is more powerful than anything you could say. Once you get used to welcoming discomfort, the next shift comes naturally, and it's a quiet kind of power, one that takes even more discipline than facing pain. It's the power of not reacting. Number 7. Power is not reacting. In life, most of our emotional chaos comes from trying to control things we never owned. In the first place, what others think of us, how they treat us, how events unfold, how strangers behave. But here's the raw, liberating truth. You can't control them. You can't control what someone else says, or thinks, or feels. And the moment you react impulsively, you're really just grasping desperately at control you never had. But there's one thing you always own: how you respond. You can choose calm. You can choose silence. You can choose presence. That's your domain. That's your responsibility. The rest, that belongs to life, to others, to the universe. You don't need to fight for it. Epictetus said it best: if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. If someone triggers you, if they can pull you out of your calm with a single comment or glare, that's not their power. That's your surrender. And the scariest part, most of the time, they don't have to do much. Just one sarcastic line, a raised eyebrow, and suddenly you're spiraling. But non-reaction, that's a quiet declaration of power. It's saying, not everything deserves my peace. You don't have to win every argument. You don't have to prove your point to everyone. Sometimes, the strongest person in the room is the one who walks away, not to run, but because they've got nothing to prove. Let me tell you a story, not for drama, but because you might see a reflection of yourself in it. Andrew is a high school teacher. He's not rich, he's not famous, but everyone around him respects him: students, co-workers, even people who disagree with him. Not because he's harsh, not because he demands attention, because he's unshakable. And in the next section, we'll look closer at Andrew's story and how stillness, when practiced daily, becomes the foundation for true leadership and unspoken strength. In the last section, we introduce the quiet power of non-reaction, the discipline to stay calm while others spin out. Now let's look how that calm becomes your strongest defense. One day, Andrew, our unshakable teacher, faced something most would crumble under. A student's parents stormed into the school, furious, demanding he be fired for discrimination. Their voices echoed through the hallway, loud enough to disrupt entire classrooms. The anger wasn't subtle, it was explosive. Teachers peeked out from doors. Students stopped mid-lesson to listen. It was public. It was hostile. And what did Andrew do? Nothing. He stood silently. No defensiveness, no flinching. He didn't argue. He didn't justify. He simply looked the parent in the eye and listened calmly, without interruption. And when the shouting stopped, not because peace had returned, but because the rage had burned out, Andrew responded in just one sentence: I understand you're worried about your child. I'll file a report with the principal as per protocol. That's all. He didn't explain himself. He didn't try to win. And yet the school leadership, the staff, even onlookers stood by him, because no one could believe that someone so grounded, so still, could possibly be acting unfairly. His stillness said everything. His restraint held more weight than 1,000 words could. And here's the shift. Non-reaction is not weakness. It's not passive tolerance. It's the stance of someone who knows their own power. Like a skyscraper during a small earthquake, it doesn't sway, it doesn't fall, it just holds. And by simply holding still, it proves its strength. If you're Wondering how to start building that kind of calm? Begin with the small moments. A pointless online argument, someone cutting you off in traffic, a rude comment. Don't respond. Don't explain, just watch. Watch how much of your reaction is instinct and how freeing it is to let silence speak for you. Let your silence become a mirror. Let them hear the volume of their own noise. Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote, "He who fights with monsters should see to it that he himself does not become a monster." When you lash out, when you react as others expect, they win. You let them pull your strings. And the most dangerous part, you won't even realize it. Because reactivity feels right in the moment. It feels righteous. It feels like you're defending truth, justice, your dignity. But really, you're just playing their game. They set the rules and you followed them. A truly strong mind doesn't need to win arguments. It doesn't need to raise its voice to prove anything. It knows its value. And that value isn't up for public negotiation. When you stop reacting, you reclaim your standards. You live by your own code. And no comment, no glare, not even silence can pull you out of yourself. So if you're ready to build a presence so steady that people pause when you enter, not because you're intimidating, but because you're unmoved, drop a comment. Silence is power. Live like no one can drag you out of yourself. Because that's how you become the person others respect and quietly fear, without ever raising your voice. Now that you've mastered your emotional posture, it's time to sharpen the other edge of the blade, your thinking. Let's talk about why critical thinking is the most dangerous weapon a powerful mind can carry. Previously, we explored how inner stillness, non-reaction, is one of the highest forms of strength. But how do you stay steady when the world around you is loud, fast, and overflowing with opinions? That's where your sharpest weapon comes in. Critical thinking. You don't need to control the world. You only need to master your response to it. But in order to do that, you have to learn how to think differently. How to rethink the things you've always assumed were true. That means questioning the easy narratives, challenging the familiar scripts, and pausing before you react. When someone says, "Well, everyone does it," your first instinct should be, "Who is everyone? And why should I want to be like them?" When the headlines start to flood your screen, before your emotions run wild, stop and ask, what's not being said here? This isn't about being a contrarian for the sake of it. It's about making space in your mind for truth before noise, bias, or emotion hijack your ability to think clearly. The irony is striking. We live in the age of information, with answers at our fingertips. Yet most of us were never taught how to think, only what to think. We consume knowledge like junk food, fast, easy, and completely undigested. And then we wonder why we feel anxious, lost, overwhelmed. A strong mind doesn't just carry around the most facts. It carries the ability to question them, to slow down, to challenge assumptions, especially your own. Try this the next time someone's words sting you. Before you react, ask yourself, why did that upset me? What fear did it touch? Or when anger bubbles up, pause and ask, what exactly am I defending right now, truth or ego? The moment you shift from reacting to questioning, you take your power back. Because a person who can question their own thoughts without fear is someone no one can manipulate. And no, this practice doesn't need to be complex or academic. Every day, pick one belief you've held for a long time about yourself, about the world, about others. Put it under the microscope. Ask, where did this belief come from? Is it still serving me? When was the last time you actually changed your mind? If you can't remember, then maybe, just maybe, you've been recycling outdated scripts. You've been repeating, not thinking. And in conversation, don't just wait for your turn to talk. Try really listening, not just to reply, but to understand. Ask, what's driving this person's view? Where are they coming from? It's hard, painfully hard, because it requires setting aside your ego. It means choosing truth over comfort even when the truth humbles you. A strong mind doesn't chase every argument. It doesn't waste its fire on every provocation. It's like a seasoned warrior. It chooses the battles that matter and walks past the rest. Strength isn't about knowing everything. It's about knowing what's not worth believing, what's not worth reacting to, what's not worth carrying. So here's the final question for today. Of all the things you believe, how many of them are truly yours, and how many were handed to you by culture, by media, by fear? Because the one thing no one can ever take from you is this: your ability to choose how you interpret your world. And in the next part, we'll tie it all together. We'll talk about how all of these lessons, stillness, resilience, self-mastery, and sharp thinking, form the foundation for something rare in this world: a life of inner freedom. In the last section, we explored the power of critical thinking, the ability to slow down, question, and reclaim your mind. Now let's talk about what that kind of clarity really gives you. Critical thinking doesn't make you difficult. It doesn't make you cold or detached. It makes you unshakable. It makes you unmanipulable. You're no longer the person who's easily swayed by loud voices, flashy trends, or emotional pressure. You don't bite the bait. You don't get pulled into games you didn't choose. You become the person people don't know how to persuade, and that unsettles them, because they can't use guilt. They can't use flattery. They can't use fear. You're thinking for yourself now, and it shows. You don't need to raise your voice to show power. You don't need to dominate a room. All it takes is one thought, spoken with clarity, and the entire room goes quiet. Why? Because deep thinking creates deep presence, and people feel that. And it all starts with one habit: asking yourself regularly, have I really thought this through? Not just once, but every time something matters. Let's pause and look back. We've just explored 8 principles for building a mind that doesn't just survive in chaos but commands attention without ever needing to ask for it. No shouting, no performance, just presence. Sometimes the loudest power is the quietest one. The kind that doesn't shake the table but makes others sit still, not because you demand it, but because your clarity makes their noise feel small. That kind of strength, real strength, is built in the places no one sees. In the moments where you stop chasing applause and start chasing truth. Where you stop looking for rescue and realize you are the rescue. Where you stop fearing being alone and finally sit face to face with your own thoughts. And maybe, for the first time, you're okay with what you find. A formidable mind doesn't dominate others. It doesn't need to, because it can't be controlled. It thinks for itself. It acts with intention. It speaks with purpose or not at all. And in a world addicted to reaction, a person who pauses to think, that person becomes unforgettable. That rarity, that calm clarity, is the highest form of power. So if this message sparked something in you, if it made you pause, even for a second, hit that like button. Not for the algorithm, for yourself, as your own quiet pledge to start living differently. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear which part of this journey made you stop and think. And if there's someone in your life who's trying to get stronger, calmer, sharper, send this to them. This might be exactly the perspective they need right now. And if you're committed to building a mind that can't be shaken, this is just the beginning. Hit subscribe. There's so much more to come. Thank you for watching, and more importantly, thank you for choosing to become the kind of person the world can't ignore. See you in the next one.